How you doing, Teese?
I'm good. How are you, Cass? How are you feeling?
I think I'm as good as I can be right now, which
Yeah.
is pretty damn good.
Yeah. It's the vibe. It's Friday night. It's good. Everything's good. My brain's shot, but it's okay. We're gonna record a good episode.
We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it.
Yeah.
Outlining a little bit, kind of what we dream of doing with this podcast, maybe talking about fandom and all its weird little extremities of like how that influences our sort of microcultures that we develop within our fandom spaces, and like the weird sort of things that happen in fandom that I don't quite think happen in more traditional media expression avenues,
Yes.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. I always spend a lot of time thinking about, like, well, how is a fandom born hypothetically? Because it's not just a vacuum. Because, like, if
Mm-hmm.
it was, oh, this always happens, we would always have hot mess disasters like the Onceler
Mm-hmm.
fandom or um, something else awful that I can't think of right now.
Was there an ancient Greek equivalent to the Onceler fandom?
Well, I mean, isn't there like ship art of Napoleon and one of his generals? Like, wasn't that a popular thing in France at some point?
I wouldn't be surprised. And I mean, we joke a lot, both in like art historical fields and fandom circles, about how most mega art pieces, like most of like our cultural touchstones when it comes to like Eurocentric art, it's biblical fan fiction of a kind.
It really
It is
is.
it is it is Bible fan art.
It really is, though. Like, I mean, if you're inspired by it, isn't that just fan art?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's definitely something to be said about like the validity of fan works versus like professional works, because like let's
Mm-hmm.
be real, so many times the people who write the Star Wars adaptation side story alternative universe books and like ones made for kids or like the bigger like young adult chapter books and stuff like that, those are usually originally like just writers in
Yeah.
their fan spaces. And then I mean,
The only delineation there is license.
literally, like just being offered like a successful pitch, you know? What's the difference between a comic artist doing a comic version of like a cartoon series already, you know, that's officially done by Boom or by IDW, you know? It's a very weird situation, like, and the line is very easily blurred. And I think it's such a fascinating thing, just like sociologically. And I really hope in this podcast we could talk about that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. I feel like there's a Star Wars episode waiting to happen just on what are those books that are now no longer considered a part of the extended universe because they got wiped out with the new prequel. But we talked about the best way to introduce ourselves, and we both kind of came to the conclusion that it would be to talk about our journey through fandom to where we are today. um, which I'm sure will be a little embarrassing, but joyful nonetheless.
Yeah.
Teese, what was your first fandom?
So,
and at what age?
It's kind of a hard question to ask because
Mm-hmm.
you got to ask yourself, like, well, do you consider it the first series that you like really emotionally cared about, or is it like the first series that you actively knew what a fandom was, you know? Because like as a kid, God bless my mom, but like I saw like my first Studio Ghibli film at age 4, and I was like obsessed. Like, God bless my mom, every time she just like saw a Ghibli film on VHS or on DVD, she kind of be like, "Hey kid, look what I brought home." Be like, God is real. And like,
What was the movie your mom introed you into Studio Ghibli with?
back in the day, obviously Blockbuster existed, and
Yeah.
because I was an only child and my dad worked nights, my mom was like, "All right, kid, we're going to Blockbuster." I'm like, "Yeah, let's go, let's go."
Incredible.
And
Yes.
my mom would just kind of let me blindly pick anything, and I was kind of afraid of horror, obviously. So like, I know a lot of people like lean towards horror as like a 5-year-old, but I was actually afraid of horror, like some children are, I guess, surprisingly. And so obviously, like, I went mostly towards kids and family, which I guess makes sense. But I remember frequently, we always would notice that My Neighbor Totoro was always rented out, like always. And we were like, why? Like, what is this movie? Like, we've never heard of it. Why is it constantly rented out? And then the first time we saw that it wasn't rented out, we snapped it up immediately out of curiosity.
Yes.
And we watched it, and like from that moment it was just like it was like all I wanted to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And then that blockbuster also had Castle in the Sky, so I fell in love with Castle in the Sky and well, and actually now as an adult, Castle in the Sky is probably my favorite Studio Ghibli film of all time.
I've
I've
never seen that one.
I've seen it in theaters like three different times. I
Oh.
own both a VHS and a DVD, so I own like the pre Disney dubbing of it on VHS, and then I
Mm-hmm.
actually own the like the Disney esque version of the DVD. And then actually my DVD copy of My Neighbor Totoro is the Universal dub. So it's
Right,
not
yeah,
Dakota and
there were
Elle
two dubs
Fanning.
for that one.
Yeah, so I have like the really, really old one that's super hard to find. And actually, my mom was on vacation this weekend with her husband's grandchildren. And my mom's like, "Can I bring Totoro? Because, like, I don't want to watch any of these. I just want to watch Totoro." I was like, "Yes, mommy." So, and then I had a childhood friend who had a copy of Kiki's Delivery Service. So, like,
Mm.
I watched that as his house. And just like, I remember when Howl's Moving Castle came out, like, in a limited run. My mom actually drove like out an hour and took me and my cousins to go see it. And just like, it was something that I was like really, really a part of. But also, I was really into Sailor Moon. And so, like, in turn, I usually consider Studio Ghibli and Sailor Moon to be like the first big impactful fandoms for me as a child. Because
Mm.
I mean, like, everybody was into Pokemon. But for me, Sailor Moon and Studio Ghibli were like the two things that like really got me in like that. I just really wanted to talk about them and I really cared about them, but not a lot of people were as well, if that makes
Even
sense.
as a child, you were
Yeah. Yeah.
a niche bitch.
I mean,
Yeah.
Sailor Moon in Studio Ghibli is not niche at all, but
No.
for a
But when you're a
5-year-old,
child, yeah.
yeah. And then I guess the first fandom I was in, like knowing what the term meant and stuff like that. Um I mean, I cared about stuff, but I never like actively partook in fan art and consuming fan art and making friends with people specifically because they cared about the same series as me. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess that would mean 2010 Tumblr, and I was into the band Ludo. So in turn, that actually made me really into Hannah Is Not a Boy's Name. So I consider Hannah's Not a Boy's Name like my first like real fandom.
Is Hannah's Not a Boy's Name a band? I've never heard of this.
Hannah's Not a Boy's Name is a webcomic by comic creator Tess Stone.
Mm-hmm.
He,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
he went on to work on Buzz, which is a graphic novel about spelling bees. He's gone on to make, so unfortunately, Hannah's Not a Boy's Name was never properly finished, which is like so upsetting to a lot of people. And a
I
lot of,
feel like I'm pulling something up from the back of my memory now and recalling like having seen this around on Tumblr and hearing about it and like
possibly.
saving it in a webcomic folder but never reading it.
Yeah, there's a lot of those. I think I still have webcomic folders like deep within my laptop somewhere. What else is Testone also has done Not Drunk Enough, which is another webcomic that he works
Mm-hmm.
on, and he's done like other what is he made a not safe for work supernatural comic. That's
Oh, so,
basically
something a little sexy.
yeah, I think it's oh my god, here. I own it. Like I own the 3 volumes that are available. It's called Seen Nothing Yet. That's what it's called. But I do consider Hannah's Not a Boy's Name like my first real fandom. What about you, sir?
It's a little niche. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you've heard of it.
Yeah.
Naruto,
Wow.
actually.
I've never heard
Naruto.
of it.
So the anime for Naruto started airing on Toonami starting in 2005,
Mm-hmm.
and in April of 2006, my friend actually got me the first volume of the manga, which was a very dangerous thing because my parents, we were in a privileged enough position where my dad kind of made an agreement with myself and my brothers growing up that if we wanted a book and we could read it, he would buy it for us within reason. Within reason. But the manga section of Borders, rest in peace, Borders, was opened up to me because this was not something I had explored previous to this. Like, ooh, I just immediately like dove headfirst into Naruto in specific and like embarrassing elementary school. You are ninja running on the playground. It is a aerodynamic way to move. It is the most effective way to move. You look cool doing it, and everyone makes fun of you. But it's worth it.
Wild, because
it's worth it.
I see Naruto as something as a middle school thing. So
interesting.
I graduated high school in 2012, so
yeah, because you're not that much older. You're a year older than me.
That's so weird, because like for me, like when I think about like people who are into Naruto, so also something that people don't probably like most of my good friends know this, but I don't think a lot of people know this. I did not get into anime until 2009.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, it was.
Wait, 2005?
2009.
2009. Okay,
it was the end of my freshman year of high school. I accidentally got swept into going to a convention with a friend I haven't seen in person in like 3 years. And her, like, I don't want to say partner, but her friend for the weekend, so her partner for the weekend, couldn't suddenly make it. So her dad and my dad still work together. So her dad picked me up from my house after work, and then he drove to pick her up, and they live about like an hour away. So, and then he drove us back down to the convention. So baby's first convention, I went in completely blind. I did not know anything about anime except Sailor Moon, Pokemon, Digimon, Studio Ghibli.
And your third eye opened.
And then my third eye fucking erupted. So it was like the second to last week of school my freshman year. And I was like, guess what? I like anime now.
This is my identity now.
Yeah.
Everyone get used to it. I'm a new person.
Guess what? Summer 2009 was the summer of Teese watching only anime.
Was it? Okay,
yeah.
So I have on my list here, very shortly after this, Wolf's Rain. Which I watched in piecemeal on YouTube, where the old culture of YouTube, or just the old culture of the internet in general, when YouTube first started, people posting pirated anime in 3 and 4 part pieces, and sometimes you had to sometimes you just missed part 2. Sometimes you had no idea what happened in part 2 of 3 of episode 18 of a 23 episode series. Which, whoops, but did you watch anime on YouTube?
I did. So because I was still into Sailor Moon, I did watch a lot of Sailor Moon on YouTube. There were some streaming sites, and like when you found the streaming site, like I remember for me, animebox.tv was like the big shit for me. And I remember being able to watch all of Full Metal Alchemist on there. I remember watching all of Ouran High School Host Club. So technically my first anime was actually Ouran, which is buck wild. All of Death Note. Like, teenagers right now don't know how fucking easy it is. And it's, like, so weird to me experience, because it's, like, when you were into anime, like, in the early 2000s, dare I say, the early aughts, you were made fun of. And, like, now anime is cool. And I know this is, like, a common thing that people talk about, but it's, like, I got into anime, like, during the yaoi paddle ages. Like, I know. And, like, I don't feel like I could truly talk about it, because, like, I have friends who, like, went to their first anime convention at, like, 10 years old. And, like, that was, for us, like, 5th grade. Like, 2005 being in 5th, 6th grade. Like,
I absolutely was at, I want to say quote-unquote conventions, because they were very small cons. Way too young.
Yes.
I feel like, because they just were not child-friendly environments the way they are today. Cons today have like it is a whole other episode, whole other discussion, but the culture of conventions in and of themselves has changed so drastically. And like, they were not spaces that were friendly to children, just because a lot of times, like, so the nature of fandom is often queer, and with queer history you often get an involvement of kink and the taboo, and so you're getting different expressions of gender and sexuality, which like a conservative kid is not going to be used to, you know? And it's just not ready for, despite my giant hoarded folder of Sazunara fan art on the family computer. Oh God. Yeah. I remember, like, I distinctly remember how totally appropriate people thought it was to take 2 cosplayers who were total strangers and like demand they kiss each other because of their ships.
Oh my god.
And
Ooh.
unfortunately, that still happens today.
Yeah.
Which absolutely should not, but it happens much less frequently today. Thank God.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do you remember your first AMV that you watched?
Oh, absolutely.
What was it?
I also made AMVs.
Did you really?
Oh, yes.
Do you still have them?
Okay, it is a very long story. I was involved with RP communities that were on YouTube.
Oh my god.
Yes.
I have friends who were
lived
too.
on YouTube.
I have friends who did too. I have friends who did too. So this is like wonderful for me. I love this.
The AMVs I remember watching. I can't place which one was first. I know what fandom I read fan fiction for first, and I'm sure if I dug deep enough, I could still find it.
I know exactly what is my first fan fiction I ever read. I literally reread it like 2 months ago, and it's like, damn, this does not hold up. So,
yeah, I've been recently doing that as well. I think Wolf's Rain was the first anime I watched AMVs for. That might have been intermingled with Naruto. That might have been I was watching Naruto AMVs and then discovered Wolf's Rain, and as a young baby wolfaboo who is just obsessed with the aesthetic of these animals was like, there's an anime?
Okay,
but thus my lifelong obsession with Studio Bones.
Funny. I love this.
And then the first fandom I read fanfiction for was Full Metal Alchemist, and it was a fanfic on DeviantArt, and it was smutty. And my little baby brain, I was in places I should not have been on the internet. I was in places I should not have been.
So my first AMV was actually before I even realized it was like what an AMV was, because my friend showed it to me. And my this friend, like growing up, she was never super into anime, but she was like the one who introduced me to Gregory Horror Show, which is technically an anime. And she was like always on forums reading stuff like she shouldn't have been reading. Like she was the one who introduced me to Snopes. Like she was like my first friend that had I don't know, like, if this is a universal experience for friends, like, for people who had friends who just clearly had, like, way much more money than you did. But, like, this friend had a family computer in the kitchen. They had a computer room, like, on their main floor. And then she had her own personal computer after the computer room computer died. So.
What?
Yeah. So, I remember
hold on. I want to know the mechanics of a family computer in the kitchen.
Yeah, so they had...
You're going to get spaghetti all up in that.
So it was like against the wall. They had a big kitchen, like a big, big kitchen. And it was like closer to like the door. And you know how like people will kind of like have, you know, those rolling desktops, like like you could pull it down and like everything is put away. It was one of those, and that's what the family computer was on.
That's how you keep the pasta sauce out.
You know it. That's the pasta guard. And
keep Garfield out of there.
No lasagna for you, baby boy. So like they had like their bills and their tax forms and stuff like that there, and then like I guess it made sense because it was in there. Like they always were really tech savvy family, and like I remember them like just having like piles and piles and piles of like those soft CD cases, and that just were just filled with DVDs and like bootleg movies and CDs. Like they always just had so many electronics. Like I remember she was like the first person that like besides like my cousins who had like a PlayStation that I remember like we were the same age, but she just like had so much shit that like I did not accumulate until I was older. So
we all had that weird family friend who like knew how to use LimeWire.
Yes.
And would get you the music that you wanted.
Oh my god, yes. I have like really strong memories of my cousin Dom, who is 8 years older than me, downloading an illegal copy of Hollywood High and then making movies and using all of our voices for like audio, and we would let him work for like hours and hours and hours, and then he would like come out of his bedroom and be like, it's done. And like we would all like gather around in front of his computer and like watch these like 2-minute movies that he spent like 4 hours on. Yeah. But not to digress, but this friend like just read, like, because she just had a computer, like it'd be like 3 a.m. and we'd be like, all right, so now we're gonna read this scary story. And like played Neopets with me, so we did a lot of that. And she was like one of those people who ended up like running her own like pixel making website, and then like had all like these weird friends who were older because she like went on forums, and like she knew like all these weird sex terms, and we were like 11, and I was like, what's kissing? So
I'm not proud of it, but I was that friend.
That's so valid. But she showed me an AMV without me realizing what an AMV was, and it was for Mermaid Melody, which is like something that
oh my God,
one of my best friends like absolutely adores. So like once in a while I'm like, I should cosplay Mermaid Melody with this friend. But whenever I think of it, I think of that specific moment, and it was for I don't know if the song is technically Nightcore or if that's just how it sounds. It was called Tell Me Where You Are, but I remember being like, this fucks. And
this is art.
This is art.
This
and
is
like,
the wave of the future. This needs to be on my TV. Why is this not on MTV?
And it was like made clearly in Windows Movie Maker, and it had that whole rainbow gradient thing going on. Like prime, like it's very sexy. So I definitely like remember that and being like, wow, this is amazing. And that was Baby's first AMV. And then Baby's first fanfiction was... So I didn't start reading fanfiction until 2011. So
okay.
do you want to take a hot guess what it was?
There's a lot of cringe happening in your voice, and I'm not really here for cringe culture. I say embrace it.
I do. And like if you ask me about it, I will give you my whole timeline about like what fanfiction I read. But it's just very telling.
I don't think it was Neopets.
It wasn't. No. Okay, so for people who don't know me, I've been playing Neopets for the past 18 years, but I did not become a furry until 2 years ago. So, it's fine. I never read Neopets fic. I never drew Neopets fan art. I just played Neopets for like my whole entire fucking life. But Baby's first fan fiction was Homestuck fan fiction for John and Carcat. And followed by Baby's second fan fiction was a foursome of John, Carcat, Dave, and Solix. So
okay. I have never read Homestuck. The opening page has made it too impossible for my digital eye-strained eyes to ever comprehend, and I don't have the attention span, admittedly, to sit down and commit to Homestuck. At one point, I was like, if I could read this in a physical form, I might be into it. And my friend told me I absolutely could not buy the books. I would be missing out on so much.
It's true.
I do have a question, though.
Yes.
This is totally deviating, but I think in the height of Homestuck, we really regarded it as being the worst fandom. Do we still think Homestuck is the worst fandom? No. I can think of one specific that's very recent that's way worse than Homestuck.
There's a lot.
Starts with a V.
There's a lot. So you know what it is with Homestuck? Is that
it was the cosplayers' treatment of hotel spaces,
yes.
I feel like.
Oh my God,
that really
yes.
ruined Homestuck.
Yes, by all means. And like there were so many events that happened that were awful that people remember, but like I can't help but think like some of my best friends I made through Homestuck, like for all the bad that Homestuck had, it also had some really good moments for me. I feel like
when you have a fandom that massive, it's impossible not to just have some really incredible people.
Yeah. And I mean, like I even worked at a good old Joanne Fabric. From
what are you making with this fabric?
Oh, that was my favorite question. Like, so what are you making? And like my favorite would be like costume, and I'd be like, yeah, what series? you going to this con? Yeah, how'd you know? Like, well, I'll be there too. But once in a while we would get like a 13-year-old like making Baby's first cosplay, and it would be Homestuck, and be like, oh, Homestuck. I read Homestuck. Like, oh my God, did you really? I'm like, yeah. Since like 2011, and like their eyes would, would be like, what? And I'd be like, yeah, I was there like when they shut down Newgrounds for Cascade. Like, I remember trying to watch Cascade in the bathroom at school. Like, please, like, you don't know who you're talking to. And like, I just feel like the fact that I could laugh at this now is just so charming. There was like a relatively more popular Homestuck cosplayer who ended up super gluing his horns to his head to cosplay Tabros.
Oh my God.
And somewhere on YouTube, there's like an audio of him telling this story. And he's like, and this girl in my hotel room, she just told me to use nail polish remover and it worked. That was me. Like, I was the one who was like...
A moment of history.
Yeah, like a moment of teastery. Like, I was the only person in that room who was smart enough to tell you to, like, use nail polish remover to get rid of super glue. Like, if I saw him do this, I would have stopped him in the first place, but no.
Okay, if we're gonna talk about first though, what was your first cosplay?
Oh, Matryoshka Gumi from Vocaloid, actually.
Oh,
I'm not a big...
That means nothing to... I mean, the Vocaloid means something to me, but I don't recognize Matryoshka.
You probably would if you were to see pictures of it. My friend was Miku, and her wig actually never came in, so we went to a local wig store, and we bought, like, a bob wig and 2 long curly ponytails, and then we just sprayed the shit out of them with, like, hair dye spray, and people loved it. Like, if this was 2020, you would not get away with that. But like,
no, you
because
would not.
It was 2011, we did.
Which, by the way, going back to that, people who shame other people's cosplays, not in my fandom.
Nope,
leave,
no.
please.
Only thing I really want, like the only thing that really bugs me is when people just don't iron their cosplays. Like when it still has like the fold lines from when it was in the bag. Like,
just bring it into the bathroom with you.
Yeah.
While you shower. Let it steam.
Let it steam, baby. Like I literally had to learn to iron for my cosplays because it bothered me that much. And I was like, no, I will not let this stand. I mean, I've steamed people's cosplays for them. I've done the shower thing. And listen, everybody starts somewhere. Like,
you know how magical it would be if you cosplayed, give me 1 second, Mr. Luigi from Luigi's Mansion. But you set your little vacuum up to steam people's cosplays.
That'd be so good. I've always wanted to cosplay Luigi's Mansion. Luigi, actually.
Please do it.
I was thinking about
He's such
it.
A good man.
And my friend...
the year of Luigi in my heart.
It's always the year of Luigi. Every year. I actually worked at GameStop the year of Luigi.
Oh God, I'm so sorry.
It was like after the promotion happened though, so it was fine. But in my heart...
No, I'm just sorry because you worked at GameStop.
I worked in a mall GameStop, so it doesn't really count. It was only holiday season. It wasn't that bad. It was fine. I've also worked at a Toys R Us during holiday season before too. The reason why I'm such a good salesperson is because I've done my time. What was your first cosplay? Because I know you have cosplayed before, correct?
I have. My first and only cosplay was actually relatively recently. It was one of the travelers from a video game called Journey, which is an indie game from that game company.
I know Journey.
So my mom helped me make the cosplays because she is an incredible seamstress. And it's actually this was at Otakon. I don't remember what year it was, but I think it was the year after Journey came out. My friend who was supposed to cosplay with me, I was the white traveler, and my friend was the more like default red terracotta traveler.
Yeah.
Got really sick that morning and went home, couldn't go onto the con floor. And my mom, who like, I'd been to cons many times before, I'd been to Otakon several times, and like my mom was like, well, can I wear it? And I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
She loved it.
Oh my God.
Loved it and was so phenomenal, and she had such a wonderful time. Like,
so exciting.
If you have chill parents, like my mom is wonderful, I heartily recommend just taking your really cool parent to a con, because my mom, she's an artist. She adored the artist alley. And just like would spend 10 minutes at like every artist booth just talking to them about their method.
That's
and,
so
like,
cute.
what they enjoyed doing. It was very sweet.
Oh, I
It
love
was
that.
very wonderful. Yeah.
My mom, like, I usually when it comes to sewing, like I like to usually say I'm a step above beginner, step under novice. Like I can sew, but I cry the whole entire time I sew.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, I could read a pattern. I can tell you what fabric is good. Like I know this shit. It's just the act of doing it just makes me want to
Yeah.
die. So I just very rarely sew. So my mom frequently helps me with my costumes. And there's photos of me from first grade for Halloween. I was Sailor Moon. And my mom was like, sometimes I thought I would be done after Halloween was over. But now you're in your 20s and you do this for fun. And I'm like, Mom, please. But my mom's a really good sport and she helps me a lot. And I would not drag my mom to a convention because my mom just like, my mom is really willing to watch a lot of stuff that I watch and stuff like, and like the two of us watch stuff together. But like, if I were to make my mom watch an anime, I think she would die. And
I had a girlfriend growing up who her mom was obsessed with anime and would watch it with her all the time.
Yeah,
like her mom was the one getting her to watch Black Butler.
I have a friend whose mom introduced them to anime. So when the two of us did Cardcaptor Sakura together, her mom was like, let me get pictures. It was really, really cute. I loved it. But my mom is a really good sport too, just in different ways. Like I actually took her to see Joanna Newsom with me for my birthday. She was like, what do you want for your birthday? I was like, Joe New tickets. And I was like, she was like, oh, okay. Why are they so expensive? I was like, please. And I looked at her and I was like, would you like to come with me, Mama? And she was like, all right.
Getting ourselves back on track a little bit. If it's cool, I want to go down kind of like my list and just read off where I've been. So I started reading fan fiction with Full Metal Alchemist, and then things got really out of hand when I got into Kingdom Hearts. I did not get into Kingdom Hearts though with Kingdom Hearts 1. I got very much into it with Kingdom Hearts 2 because your boy is obsessed with Organization 13. Love those leather-clad little boys. And so that kind of dominated all of my fandom interests, from watching AMVs to reading fan fictions to hoarding fan art from like late grade school, like 5th grade all the way into middle school. And unfortunately still now, thank you, Square Enix. I don't appreciate that. We're not going to talk about Kingdom Hearts 3. That didn't happen.
It's okay. I don't care about Kingdom Hearts, so
I wish that were me. I so wish that were me.
I sat through the most, like 95% of the whole entire first game. I watched a friend play. I've been to Kingdom Hearts Orchestra twice. And, I just don't care about Kingdom Hearts. But I have a question. Yes. I found this out like literally last year that a lot of people would make AMVs to Axel and Roxas, obviously. Akuroku, a very popular ship.
Are you gonna put me on the spot here?
No, I guess maybe, but I found out recently that Roxy by Ludo is a very popular Akuroku AMV song, and it's really funny because I feel like that's so intertwined with a lot of people's fandom experiences, and how like for a lot of people they got into Ludo via that song. But for me, it was, I had a neighbor who was really into Ludo, which then made me Testone really liked Ludo, and then did a lot of fan art using lyrics for Hannah's Not a Boy's Name, so which is how a lot of people in turn combined Hannah's Not a Boy's Name and Ludo together, which is how I found out about Hannah's Not a Boy's Name. So it's wild to experience. And also another AMV that I watched for the first time, one of my first AMVs was somebody did AMVs to all of Ludo's Broken Bride album, which is a concept album, and they did it all to Final Fantasy VII AMVs. So,
oh my god, that sounds incredible.
Yeah, so
it's interesting that you bring that up though, because I think I was introduced to Ludo not through Roxy. I don't remember specifically, but I'm pretty sure I got into Ludo, I think it was because of the song Love Me Dead.
Yes, which is like their one-hit wonder.
Yeah, via an AMV, which it's weird how some properties, and I think especially musicians, become so known and so explored, like because of their weird tangential relationships through like
Yes.
I started watching Barry because I liked Bill Hader in chapter 2 of It.
Yes.
So I'm always going to associate watching Barry with It now.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Back to
But
fan fiction.
yeah,
Organization 13.
yeah. From like I made AMVs then for Ereka 7. I will not pronounce it Eureka 7. Do not come for me. Do not at me. I was like making AMVs for like Wolf's Rain and Legend of Zelda, and then I got really into Devil May Cry and Silent Hill. And from there, like I'm just gonna go down a list at this point. Final Fantasy 12, delicious, love it. It's on the Switch now. Go get it and play it. Dragon Age, which is significant because it was the first property that made me aware of people RPing original characters.
Okay.
Which, so context. I'm an artist and a writer, primarily like fiction writing, but I enjoy academic writing. But the idea of like being able to engage my OCs in like collaborative writing with other people was something that was kind of new to me. The only like concept I had of that was like writers who worked collaboratively, and the thing that's immediately floating to mind, and the thing I think I was dimly aware of as a younger person, was like Good Omens by Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman. So Dragon Age then inadvertently launched me into the weird half fandom space of original content, and specifically like RP forums and the like microcosms those create, because they're not technically friend groups. Like sometimes you have like 30-40 people all working together. RP partner finding forums, and this all played into like, I played World of Warcraft quite a bit and really loved that, and finding out about RP servers and things like that. And then your boy was quite active on the Tumblr Animal Crossing community.
Okay.
Just wanna throw that in there. Love Animal Crossing. Love to engage in Animal Crossing. The Animal Crossing fandom at large is very positive and very wonderful. And then Captain America came out, Winter Soldier specifically. We love some good Stucky content, which just through a whole series of events then, don't ask how, that got me into Magic the Gathering and those fan spaces of going to pre-release events and launch events, and the very non-hospitable just environment of being in a comic or game shop as a then presenting woman. Love to see it. Was very into Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, and that was the first Tumblr community-based RP I was a part of. I was very big into the Elder Scrolls and Fallout 4. A lot of these things are things that like I still actively engage in fandom with because they're more recent. Like these are things that I was into as far back as high school and am still into now. But The Witcher, my boy. And when The Force Awakens came out, I got very into Star Wars, and I had never seen the original films. So it was very weird to kind of come into that and sort of retroactively educate myself on just kind of what that fandom space is like, and having a fun conversation with a cis straight male friend who couldn't understand why people were shipping Finn and Poe, and said, no. And I quote, "What, do people ship Han and Luke?" And I went, my boy, my boy, you might want to sit down.
Oh boy, oh boy.
But after Star Wars comes the fandom that is probably closest to my heart and how we kind of met, which is Final Fantasy 15.
Famble.
We love our Chocobros.
I love Final Fantasy 15.
That was the first franchise that I made fan merchandise for, but that fandom in specific is so, and I mean that property, like that IP is so very personal for me in just so many ways, and I have met so many incredible people and friends through it.
Agreed.
And I love it.
Agreed.
I love it so much.
Final Fantasy is the first Final Fantasy game I've ever played. So
it's a good one. It's very different from the others.
It's a great Final Fantasy for fans and newcomers alike. as it says in the beginning.
I actually just got Dawn of the Future in the mail yesterday, and it is sitting on my shelf, and I'm like, oh, this is the end. This is it. And that game was also very fun for me, I think, just because I was going through school and learning a lot more about just how games are made, and so like being able to pick apart that game. And I've always, your boy has always been a little bit of a shitty critic in terms of just wanting to understand how things work and why things do or don't work. And Final Fantasy 15 for me is such a fun exercise in what a game can be and what a game fails to be. And as much as I love it, it is far from a effective game in what I think it's set out technically to do. But I really respect it for that, and I think it is a great sort of flag in the sand of things which can be learned when we sort of coalesce the idea of like Western RPGs and JRPGs going downhill from there. I guess I should say uphill, because it's not a fun track on my fandom record from here on out. Venom came out.
Miss Venom.
I love
Venom.
I unironically love Venom. It is such a fun fucking movie.
It's
and
good.
I love Tom Hardy, so it's like wonderful. Okay, so this is a weird one.
Yes.
Don't come for me. Law and Order SVU.
King, I respect you so much.
I don't endorse Law and Order, any of them,
As a fan,
as TV shows, because they're fucking propaganda, and I'm not here for that. But Raul Esparza is a wonderful actor, and I really love him, and he plays a character on the show who is an assistant district attorney, and my brain looked at him and looked at this shitty little Staten Island detective on the show, Carisi, and was like, that's a fun dynamic. And I was like, I wonder.
Oh.
Went to AO3 and found like an incredible writer. Absolutely fucking phenomenal. And I'm gonna fucking out myself now, because someone's gonna go find their work, because there's not a lot in that fandom. But they were just writing incredibly rich and difficult conversations around coming out and understanding sexuality and the difficulty of having a partner who's ready to be out when you are not out. What it means to live stealth. And it's clearly very a lived experience for this writer, but it is just so phenomenally done. So I spent quite a few months just kind of sitting in that nice little camp.
That's fine. It happens.
And then I continued to poison myself with Detroit Become Human.
No, God.
I don't like the game. I fucking hate the game. I abhor the game. I do not like anything that David Cage puts out. At the risk of getting myself blacklisted by literally anyone, I do not like anything that comes from David Cage. I do not think he's a good person. He has an awful record. Not game wise, but in terms of his conduct in his office that I don't stand by. And Detroit Become Human is a terrible
Racism
narrative.
becomes human.
Yeah. It is a terrible narrative that shallowly centers a white protagonist in the middle of a piss poor allegory for black treatment in America, and the oppression specifically of black, indigenous, and people of color. So fuck that noise. That said, some of the fan content that came out of that game is remarkable, and I am particularly drawn to fandom spaces which explore the humanity of and attractive quality of unconventionally attractive individuals. Detroit Become Human, I want to have its own episode, because some things happened within that fandom that I have not seen repeated, in which people were so terrified to engage with that content that they made separate private Twitters because they were afraid of being fired from jobs. They were afraid of like absolutely wild levels of harassment. It's a very weird fandom situation.
I have a few mutuals who are like really into it, and I'm like, I've been told that the fandom is like incredibly such a different experience than the game, but I only know like the tips of the iceberg in both situations, so I really can't speak for it at all.
That one's going to need its own episode because I'm already brimming with, like, things I want to talk about that are so interesting
I'm
about
just
that
gonna
film.
like sit and just let you talk for hours.
Welcome.
Hey.
And then, so after Detroit, I didn't have a lot of time to play video games anymore, but I was working at I was working at a place which sold games, which is all I will say. But I started playing the Pokemon trading card game, which is so much fun, and it got me to watch the Pokemon anime, specifically the Pokemon Sun and Moon anime.
Which I've heard is good.
It's so good. It's so much fun. It is so bright and poppy, and like it has beautiful sequences of animation. And the first series in particular, because there's Sun and Moon and then there's Ultra Sun and Moon, but the first series in particular is just so much fun. And most of the episodes have a really positive message about living in harmony with our natural surroundings and, you know, supporting efforts of biology and ecology and just understanding and respectfully engaging with the places you live in a way that can help the natural wildlife, which I think is so important to teach kids.
That's so cool.
And it's just really charming and sweet. And it was a take on Pokemon I feel like I hadn't seen in a really long time. Which brings me then to my great shame, that is probably my first engagement with fandom that I've actively wanted to keep private and not talk about because I am so ashamed of it.
You don't have to talk about it.
No, it's it.
It's
It's it. I don't remember. I don't. Yeah, homophobia the clown.
There he is.
I think I saw the first movie in theaters.
I saw both in theaters.
Yeah, I saw both of them in theaters. I saw
Actually,
It
no, I didn't see
Chapter
original
2.
It. That's a lie. I didn't. My mom saw original It in theaters, and she's like, "It's awful. Don't go." I was like, "Okay." And then later in the year, I saw it like on demand. It's like, oh, she was so right.
Oh yeah. I know in the original one, there's like the one kid he didn't know how to ride a bike, I guess, so they just put like an adult man on the bike instead. And it's like there was a kid there before. Anyway, I've never seen the original It. I own the book. I don't plan to read it. I have a complicated relationship with Stephen King in that I think sometimes he writes some real bangers of lines, but the way he treats women and the racism in fucking the book, I just no thank you. But the Muschietti movies, especially the first one, is really enjoyable and fun for a horror movie. It's not anything amazing. And It Chapter 2, we do have to recognize that there are very few canonically gay horror protagonists in the mainstream canonical media, and Richie Tozier is some of the very little inspiration or representation we get. So, I am here for Ready. I like to see how the fandom has explored that, and I think similar in the way to how the Detroit Become Human fandom manifested. The It fandom is interesting in that there's two very divided parts of the fandom where there's the younger fan base of all teenagers, and I don't interact with them for obvious reasons. But the older portion of the fan base, oh my god, is so creative. And this is the fandom which introduced me to social media AUs. And the stuff happening in the It fandom is incredible. There are people who are running literal online games via Twitter.
Yes.
There are people who are manufacturing choose your own adventure stories. They are these cross media stories that are so much more than just social media AUs, because the idea of a social media AU, right, is like, oh, it happens through social media. A lot of time that's just text messages. But there are people who I don't want to name any names. There is one writer in specific who's relatively well known within the fandom, and if you know who I'm talking about, you'll know who I'm talking about. But he has created an entire AU that is based around the characters working in a production for like a high budget Netflix series, and he started a sequel to it because like he had more story to tell and the first one was so successful. But he's got everything from like, you know, IMDb pages to news articles that he makes to Wikipedia entries. There are the text messages, the emails. You get pieces of the script of the show that the characters are working on. So not only it is a 2-layer cake where there is original content that he is making that is the TV series, and I believe he's actually working on a spec novel or a spec script for this show, and then the characters who are actively living this out and their lives outside of that TV production.
That's so
And
cool.
he also just did like a horror AU, which was like, I think he said it was his version of a fix-it AU for the movies, because chapter 2 does and makes some decisions that are kind of shit.
It really does.
It really does. It really does. It is a fascinating fandom that I cannot wait to talk about. Now that I have done sharing, Teese, please tell me about your journey through fandom.
So, like I mentioned, big Sailor Moon, big Studio Ghibli fan. Mm-hmm. And then, actually, wait, I have a question I want to ask you first.
Yes.
What's your OTP? Do you have one?
Oh.
Do you want to think on it and then come back?
I think I know my answer.
Okay.
And I think my answer is gladness.
That's so valid. Taste.
I am here for all iterations of Polyship Road Trip.
Yes, same.
To clarify, Gladio and Ignis from Final Fantasy 15. I am here for all iterations and all foundations of those 4 boys together. Mm-hmm. I am also here for totally platonically shipping them.
Yes.
But I think I'm legally obligated to say gladness.
That's
those are my boys.
Yeah,
I love them very much.
You do put a lot of work into them.
Buy my zine on Gumroad.
Buy it, please. So, to introduce myself a little bit, I mean, like, who the fuck are we? We're just 2 friends who are making a podcast about fandom, I guess. Mm-hmm. Caspian's work does a lot of fan merch, and I do a lot of writing and analysis. I've worked with sites such as Funimation. I've worked with Sci-Fi Wire, Anime News Network, Anime Feminist. I've worked with some other people. I write mostly about movies, anime, and Neopets. So, hi guys. So, started off with Sailor Moon and Studio Ghibli, and then I lived in an internet bubble, which was a Neopets game 24/7. The grind never stops from about... Literally, Neopets was like my first introduction to the internet, and then I was like 14, and I was like, I guess I'll make a Facebook. And then from there, I've just lived in a Neopets bubble. So my introduction to fandom and anime was after this convention that I briefly mentioned, and then that's when I started.
What convention was it?
It was Anime Next 2009. So it was the first year that Anime Next was in the Somerset location. So for people who aren't local, Anime Next was like New Jersey's biggest convention, and it first started out in like a smaller, like one giant room convention center, and then it moved to from 2009 to 2014 it moved to the location that I'm talking about right now, and there were concerts, and there were panels, and there were screenings, and it like spanned over 3 hotels. And then now starting in 2016 onwards, the Atlantic City Convention Center. So it's now bigger. It's not nearly as fun in my opinion since it's moved from Somerset, but the Somerset location was really, really sweaty and really, really stinky. And so it's kind of for good that it got moved to Atlantic City. So that was baby's first convention. My first brush with anime, knowing what anime was unfortunately episode 3 of Full Metal Alchemist 03. So that's the episode with Nina. And
no,
some guy tapped my friend on the shoulder and was like, is she okay? She's crying really, really hard. And my friend just goes, it's her first time watching the episode. She'll be okay. Her mom's name is Nina too. It's fine. And
oh my God.
Yeah. And I mean, I was fine. But like, I'm a really empathetic person, and I cry really, like literally, at that time period, if you made eye contact with me, I would cry. So it was a very emotional moment for me. And then that Sunday after the con, when her dad drove us home, drove me back to my house, and he started talking to my mom for 2 hours, this friend and I watched 7 episodes of Ouran High School Host Club. And then from that moment, I was completely hooked onto anime. So to jump then a year later, when I knew what a fandom was and I cared about fandom, like I said, Hannah's Not a Boy's Name was a big one for me. And then it was kind of like, just in general, random anime. Thing in particular really like sticks out for me. Oh, actually, that's a lie. 2000, like mid to late 2010 to 2011, I was really into Claymore. And how I found Claymore was through DeviantArt. And my Christian name is actually Teresa. So I discovered that there was a character in Claymore named Teresa, and then from there I watched Claymore and got really, really into Claymore. I still love Claymore, but unfortunately, it is a series written by a man about women soldiers. So as you can imagine, sometimes I fantasize about rewriting it and like actually being good. But yeah,
but are you kin with
no,
Teresa Claymore?
I'm not. No, I'm not. I don't know. Am I kin with anybody from Claymore? No, I'm not. I would have to reread it or rewatch it to tell you if I was kin. But it's been like something I've always wanted to long time cosplay that I just never got around to it. I think I recently read like the first 3 volumes of it again, like last summer, and I just never picked it back up, but I want to. So then to jump forward, the first like big fandom I was into was Homestuck. I was really into
Shameful.
Homestuck. Listen,
Shameful.
I respect it. Homestuck, like I said,
Get out of
Homestuck
my
means
house.
leave. But then then this goes, well, what fan fictions were you reading? And I could document my growth and movement through fan fiction, through fandom with fan fiction, which is really wild. So I went from Homestuck.
Well, hold on really quick. I do want to ask one question.
Yes.
What medium were you using to read fan fiction?
Oh, AO3. I never read
Okay.
FF. Yeah, never read FF.net. I never read LiveJournal. The only
Okay.
time I actively read fanfiction.net fics is I'm really into Beck Mongolian Chop Squad.
Sometimes
It
we
is-
gotta dig into those archives.
Yeah, Beck Mongolian Chop Squad is my favorite anime of all time. I've actually met the creator of it. I've written about it. I've been published on Beck Mongolian Chop Squad. I love it. It's like a really important anime to me, even though I know it's not good, but I really, really like it. And I'm one of those people that like, I really, really like something, but I don't have to ship something.
Yeah.
So there's like tons of stuff that I really care about, but I just don't have a fandom to interact with. I'm also incredibly niche, so stuff that I do want to read fan fiction for, there's like nothing.
You must supply for your own demand.
I do. Oh, I
Yeah.
do. I'm gonna out myself very, very soon.
Oh no.
So from Homestuck, I went to Haikyuu, and
That's ending soon.
I know it's literally ending like this week. Like it's ending the 20th. Like I'm gonna die. I shaved my
We're gonna
head.
make it through this.
I don't know.
We're gonna do this
Thank
together.
you. Thank you.
Did you shave your head? To
I shaved
go
my
volleyball?
head to cosplay Tonica, and now I only cosplay shaved head characters. I was really into Pacific Rim for a good while.
Yes.
I love Pacific Rim so much, so
Well,
much.
and there was so much engagement with the
Yes.
OG writer on Tumblr,
Yes.
like answering questions. I never saw the second movie.
It's
I
not
hear it's not
good.
worth it.
It's not. It's not.
I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry, John.
What's so wonderful about Pacific Rim is that there's such a rich vein of world building in it, and I love my dad Guillermo del Toro,
Yeah.
and there's just like, I just love Pacific Rim for the characters, which is like,
Yeah.
and I think
They
that's how
are.
I feel. That's how I also feel about Fire Emblem Three Houses. Like I
They
know
are
it's not
all
good.
so distinct when they're
Yes.
on the screen, and
Yes.
you immediately pick up upon their personalities.
Yes.
And like, even though I forget his name, but the Max Martini's son, in the first movie, like even though
fuck.
he looks generic as hell, like
Yeah.
is it Chuck? Or is Chuck Dad's? I don't.
Hercules
remember. Anyway.
and Hercules Hansen and Chuck.
Yes.
it is.
Yeah.
Chuck.
Okay. All right. Okay. It is Chuck. That just
Is
feels
it
like
Chuck? I think so.
that doesn't feel
They're
like a good
white.
name.
They're Australian. Whatever.
You're not my Beckett boys. I don't
No.
care about you. But yeah,
yeah.
the visual direction of that movie is
It's
Chef
tasty,
kiss.
dare I say.
Oh.
And then from Pacific Rim and Haikyuu mix, I got really into Final Fantasy 15 because I was reading Haikyuu fic for like a while there. And then Final Fantasy 15, and now I read a lot of Fire Emblem fic. However,
I know you're not much of a gamer, Teese.
I game. I just
You
not.
ga-
I like game, just not.
I was gonna ask. Did you ever play Did you play Final Fantasy 15? I don't remember if that was one.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I played it. Yeah. I've spent a lot of hours playing Final Fantasy 15, boys. Let me tell you.
As any respectable person should.
Yes. So from Final Fantasy 15, I kind of eked towards. I don't know. Sometimes I go like in moments where I don't read fan fiction that often. However, I am outing myself for something very, very cringe. It's not cringe. It's just, if you've read it, you're going to be like, oh God, that was you. I'm really into Dungeon Meshi. really, really, really into Dungeon Meshi. And I was the first person to write not safe for work fic for the tag. So I've written a lot of questionable Dungeon Meshi fic.
If you are looking to cancel Teese,
this is literally like if some 15-year-old were to like read my fic, they'd be like, shrimp arresting, canceled, and I'd be like, oh shit. And like at this,
children, there's nuance. There's nuance.
I haven't read there's it. Not nuance to a main character getting tits. It's fine. Listen. I really like the main character, but I really like boobs. I'm sorry. So welcome
to our intro into our episode on gender bends, and what is it, Rule 64?
63, I think.
Rule 63, Rule 30. 34 is porn, 63 is, gender bends.
Sorry, team.
Wow.
I've written I mean, if we're going to keep canceling me, I've written transformation porn too. It's fine, whatever. Yeah. You could all find that on my Not Safe for Work AO3. It's trackable.
People. It doesn't mean we get a pass, but it does mean we get a say.
It's fine. Everything's fine. And then I read a lot of Metal Gear Solid fan fiction. Other things, I guess, to know about me is that like I said, I'm a really big Neopets player. I actually run a Neopets Twitter.
Your icon on Discord that I'm looking at right now
is Scrunt.
Is a Neopet.
It's Scrunt2, who is a Neopet.
Not one,
Scrunt2. Scrunt2 does not exist and has not existed since like 1999. So, but he is well loved. I've presented panels at MagFest about sexuality in Neopets before. I've written articles about sexuality in Neopets. I have a lot of ideas for other Neopets-based articles. I am a really huge Beastars fan. While Cass cares mostly about video game, I care a lot about anime. But unfortunately, I read more manga than I watch anime these days, and all the things I care about are really niche. Or were niche until they got an anime adaptation and then they got really big. I mostly care about manga written by women and Golden Kami. So, that was it. I was reading a lot of Golden Kami fan fiction too for a while there. I
met you when you were in Golden Kami cosplay.
Yes. I was technically also one of the first Golden Kami cosplayers in the United States. I cosplayed it, Anime NYC 2017.
Someone from like Minnesota or Idaho is gonna crawl out of the woodwork to call you out on that.
And that's fine.
Like, actually.
That's fine. AB 2018, Crunchyroll took my photo and it was like, Golden Kami cosplay already happening. The anime's coming out next month. It's like, oh, buddy. Buddy.
Y'all heard of manga?
Yeah. So I really do be caring about Golden Kami a lot. I read a lot of Golden Kami fic. Unfortunately, what has me in a vice grip right now is Fire Emblem Three Houses. And I hate that it's hypnotized me to such a degree because it's not.
You're a Bleagles main. I'm here for Golden Deer.
I respect you because when I did not know anything about Fire Emblem, I was like, I like Claude. He's nice. And then my crush on Dorothea hit really hard.
Yeah, she is irresistible in every way.
City. She's so hot. I love her. And then we've joked about this before, but not on the podcast, but I definitely kin Ferdinand von Iger. So I have to be Bleagles or die.
And I will be relentlessly mocked because Teese does believe Sylvain should have stayed in the well. But that is my support of... He's tied with Claude. I love Claude so much, but I also really love Sylvain.
It's okay. I respect... You know what it is? I respect trans people.
You cannot respect me.
No.
It's okay.
I respect trans people who like Claude. Hets, And cis people? Not in this house, babes. Sorry, but you are not allowed to.
Wait, hold on. Do you mean trans people who like Sylvain?
They could be trusted. But
okay, you said Claude at first.
No,
anyone who likes Claude can be trusted.
Claude is a good boy.
Cisgenders are not allowed to like Claude. This just in.
I really care about 20th Century Boys as a whole. It's like one of my favorite written pieces of media ever. Like, I'm actually rereading it again right now.
Those are boys from the 1900s?
Yes, they are. I'm a really big movie person. I guess can you call the Academy Awards fandom a thing? Because
Yes.
So what ends up happening every Academy Awards season is that nominees happen. I watched the nominations presentation live. Like, I actually brought my laptop into work this year, and like my coworker came into the office late. She's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "Shut up." So I'm really passionate about making fun of the Academy Awards. I'm one of those people that really doesn't have a lot to say without fluff, and then like you ask me one question and then I just word vomit out an answer that's like totally out of left field when it comes to movies. I do
think that's where kind of like our biggest cross section kind of comes in, is that we both really tend to enjoy film quite a bit.
Yes.
For as much as like we kind of deviate in other areas.
I'm not into music fandom, but I'm also a really big music person as a whole. And I listen to a lot of weird stuff.
You do.
I do. So, like, I guess there's that. So once in a while, I'll meet somebody who happens to have a similar music taste to me, and then it ends up that they have, like, a similar manga taste with me, too. And I'm like, wow, the flavor of it all.
Cut from the same cloth.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like my experience in fandom is a lot shorter than a lot of people, because I didn't get into it until, like, high school, and I lived in my Neopets bubble for so long, but I really do feel like...
It's safer in there.
Yeah, and I also feel like that I am like a modern Neopets god at this point. So, like, American Gods Who? It should be like me at my computer just playing Neopets. Like, it's fine.
You are media. You are
tech. I'm media. But I think that's it.
Yeah, my engagement with fandom tends to come a lot more as either a secret contributor, because I am a reclusive creative, if that makes sense. I most chiefly talk and interact with fellow creators in fandom spaces, as opposed to people who are just interested in something and want to talk about it, which isn't to invalidate that at all, but I do definitely find, like, I find more kinship with other people who are drawing fan art or writing fic and wanting to talk to them, just because I come from a background as a creator and I want to engage with other creators, as opposed to just kind of idly talking about stuff.
I make friends with everybody I talk to for more than 10 seconds. So
you do. You're a very charismatic person.
Thank you. I've made friends. I just make friends with a lot of like artists at tables because they're trapped, and I just talk to them for 10 minutes straight. That's literally what happened, how I became your and Jala's friend.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of glossed over that, but we met at Anime Next in 2018? 19?
It was literally last year. When it comes to fandom, I mean, I'm kind of a silent observer myself as well. However, frequently I oftentimes feel like I am the only person in a fandom. So like I said, I'm really into a lot of stuff that just doesn't have a big following. So, or an old following that just no longer exists. So, like, shout out to the Metal Gear fandom, because like they've been around.
Y'all bopping.
Yeah, like y'all still are going, and I'm like, thank you for this flavor, because like I feel like so many things like trickle and eventually die, but Metal Gear's going strong, babes.
Well, and I'm very interested to see. So I think there's a pretty stark difference between fandoms that are established now in the very instantaneous and cycling age of Twitter, where they just get chewed through, eaten up, and thrown out very quickly, versus fandoms which were established pre-Twitter.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Because like, ain't nothing gonna kill Star Wars fandom. They really tried it with Rise of Skywalker. They really tried. If you think Last Jedi was bad, please don't talk to me. But like, you can't kill a Star Trek fandom.
No.
Like, there are some things that are so enduring, like Dragon Age still persists because like it came about in that Tumblr era, and I feel like individuals who are kind of forged in those areas are able to sit much more and continue to create, and there's
Sailor
like a
Moon's
very
forever,
rich
babes.
engagement. Oh yeah, but I'm curious to know what'll happen to something like Promare.
Yeah, I was wondering that too because like, uh,
Promare feels like a weird sort of litmus test. And I mean, for anyone not aware, Promare was a limited release movie from Studio Trigger that came out in 2019 and rose to astronomical popularity to the point where both of us being just like convention goers and like convention vendors, there was merch that was churned out for it in a
days.
frightening amount of
In
time.
days.
Yeah.
Quite
And
literally.
not just prints, but like bags, plushie. These are all fan made, of course. And so,
And
and
it's such
they all
little
sold
content.
out.
Yeah.
They all sold out.
It's, I mean, if you think about it, it's a one-time 90-minute movie, and that's not a whole lot of content in comparison to fandoms that last half the amount of time, you know?
But sometimes less content
Is better.
in having it, exactly, because there is more for people to work with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think coming down to the ethos of it, right, is that, you know, fandom is a way for us to engage with properties, and the more sort of like, if we're thinking about it as like a physical structure, if you have a piece of media which is so tightly sealed and neat and like perfectly done, where there's no holes, there's nothing, all the characters are satisfying, there's no sort of like further explorations you want with plot or character, like that doesn't really beg as much fan engagement as something that is like riddled with plot holes and like weird unexplored characters with engaging designs, like Promare.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you could even, like, not to go back to Fire Emblem, but I think part of the appeal of Three Houses is that they give you the setup for these characters to essentially just, like, play Barbie with, you know, like, because there are, like, all these bonus conversations that you could have, and there's ways to force them to interact that usually it wouldn't, and it exists in a way that like the foundations are laid down, but really as fan creators you can continue to make it blossom. And we see that a lot, especially like, I mean, let's be real, Final Fantasy 15, like those characters ain't that deep. Like they have some.
He's big and he's angry and he's there to protect Noctis, and we had a DLC where we could have explored his character more, but we decided to put in Butt Rock. Also, he likes ramen.
He sure does.
I'm sorry, he likes cup noodle.
He likes cup noodle. And he has two scars on his face now. So, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's always, if there's a way to pretend with characters, I think there's always going to be a bigger chance for fandom. But then I also feel like situations with something like Star Trek or with X-Files, like these are like pillars essentially to the blueprint of fandom, if you think about it, and like what and how long these series are and how long they go. And is it just simply because it's interaction, it's comforting to know that at the end of the day, these characters are always going to interact with each other no matter what. So it's definitely like two ends of the spectrum, and Promare, yeah.
But to wrap that up in a tiny little bow, that's what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
So hopefully it was wonderful having you for our first episode, and I hope you'll come back and listen to more. You can reach out to us if you have any questions or suggestions for episodes through authorsnotepod@gmail.com, or hit us up on Twitter @authorsnotepod.
On
yes,
Twitter.
on Twitter.
And where can we find you on Twitter, Cass?
You can find more of my work on Twitter @valhethella. That is VALHETHELLA. Valhethella.
You could find me on social media under Vicunyad, VICUNAD. Our theme music is written and composed by James Wayulo. He didn't give me a website, but probably if you Google him, it would be easy enough to find.
And our cover art was done by the wonderful Nyaliest on Twitter. You can find her Nyalliest.